Some years ago, I was able to fulfill a lifelong wish to visit Bethlehem and the Church of the Nativity. There I went down into the chapel of the manger and stood in silent reverence by the silver star that is inlaid on the floor and marks the place.
King Charles has been forcibly removed from Buckingham Palace after a shocking inquest linked him to Princess Diana's tragic death. Explosive confessions, hidden letters, and royal secrets long buried have finally come to light. What really happened in Paris, and why did it take nearly 30 years for the truth to emerge? The secret inquest that sparked it all. It started quietly, but exploded into the biggest royal scandal of the century. In April 2025, a new international inquiry launched in Geneva. At first, it was brushed off as another Diana conspiracy. But this time, the stakes were different. This wasn't about gossip. This was about proof. Leaked MI6 documents, including redacted files from the old Operation Paget, were unsealed. And what they showed stunned investigators. Timelines didn't match, witness accounts were altered, and key medical logs were missing. But the biggest shock came from a letter no one expected to see again. A 1996 handwritten note by Diana, once dismissed as paranoia, was resubmitted as new evidence. In it, she wrote, "My husband is planning an accident in my car." That line alone reignited a storm. French officials, who had long stayed silent, suddenly cooperated. Emergency service logs from the crash night were examined, and the delays were not just suspicious, they were deliberate. Then came a voice from inside. A former royal chauffeur came forward anonymously. His testimony was damning. He said he was ordered to make specific modifications to Diana's car weeks before her final trip to Paris. The inquest had everything: documents, insiders, and now global attention. And yet, it was only the beginning, because what came next would turn the royal world upside down. We no longer believe this was just a tragic accident. Geneva Inquiry official. Coming up next, the woman behind the curtain and how Camilla's past may have helped trigger Charles's downfall. Camilla's alleged role and Charles's growing isolation. As pressure mounted from the inquiry, another disturbing truth began to surface, one that pointed directly at Camilla Parker Bowles. Several former royal aides, speaking under oath, said Camilla pressured Charles in the summer of 1997 to resolve the Diana situation, telling him that no royal wedding would be approved unless Diana was out of the picture. But it wasn't just whispers. Hidden letters between Charles and Camilla were uncovered, some filled with cryptic lines like, "This must end before our future can begin." What exactly did that mean? Investigators wanted answers, and so did the public. Then came another bombshell. A disgraced MI5 officer who had previously worked as a security consultant for the royals was linked to Camilla's private network. He had resigned just days after Diana's death. His phone records? Scrubbed. His movements? Unaccounted for. Inside the palace, things were falling apart. Princess Anne and Prince Edward, once neutral, began distancing themselves from Charles and Camilla in 2024. One palace source quoted Anne, calling them a growing liability. And then came the fights. Staff at Clarence House reported late-night shouting matches between Charles and Camilla, mostly about Diana's lasting popularity. Even after all these years, Diana's name wouldn't fade, and that truth seemed to be tearing Charles and Camilla apart from within. She's still here, even in death, and it's driving them mad. Former royal staffer. What started as a secret investigation had now become a full-blown palace crisis. But the next voice to speak would take things even further. And this time, there was no going back. The whistleblower who changed everything for years, insiders stayed silent. But in May 2025, one man finally broke. A dying MI6 operative, known only as Agent L, recorded a video confession from his hospital bed, and what he revealed changed everything. In a shaky voice, he looked straight at the camera and said, "We were told to watch her. We were told not to save her." His statement sent shockwaves through the intelligence world. He claimed that in early 1997, King Charles, then Prince of Wales, personally ordered illegal surveillance on Diana. She was being followed. Her phone, cloned, her conversations, recorded in real time. And the night of the crash in Paris? According to Agent L, it was never meant to be fatal, but it was meant to send a message. He described a classified directive to delay emergency response to the crash site. He claimed higher-ups believed it would look better if the response wasn't rushed. That delay may have cost Diana her life. What made his story undeniable were the documents. Agent L had kept GPS logs that showed a royal vehicle parked less than 500 meters from the Pont de l'Alma tunnel at the time of the crash. That car was never accounted for in any official report. Until now. And he wasn't alone. His confession caused a domino effect. Two more former intelligence officers stepped forward. One confirmed that Diana's phone had been cloned. Her last call with Dodi Fayed was being listened to live by agents in London. The other revealed that MI6 had real-time visual feed from a surveillance team in Paris that night. But the footage had been erased within hours of Diana's death. Within days, top-level resignations began pouring in. Former intelligence heads, senior royal advisors, and even medical liaisons all stepped down. None gave statements, but their silence spoke volumes. There were things I saw in 1997 that I was told to forget. I didn't forget. I just waited. Agent L recorded confession. This confession didn't just shock the public. It sent a tremor straight to the heart of the royal family. And for two sons still grieving their mother, the truth became unbearable. Coming next, William and Harry face their father and demand the answers the world had been waiting for. William and Harry confront their father. They hadn't spoken like this in years, but in May 2025, Prince William and Prince Harry put aside everything, distance, anger, and the press, to do what had to be done. They met their father behind closed doors at Sandringham just days after watching the full footage of the MI6 confession. It was meant to be private, but what happened inside those walls couldn't stay hidden for long. William led the confrontation. Calm but firm, he laid down a folder of evidence: Diana's final letters, leaked surveillance records, and newly decrypted transcripts from 1997. According to a palace insider, William looked his father in the eye and said, "You knew, and you let it happen." Harry, who had flown in from the US just for this meeting, backed his brother fully. It was the first time in years the brothers stood united. They weren't just sons, they were seeking justice. The meeting lasted over 3 hours, and then came the turning point. Charles cracked. He didn't confess to planning anything directly, but he admitted he knew more than he ever told the public. He allegedly said, "I could have stopped it, but I didn't." That line, just 7 words, would haunt the royal family forever. Inside sources say Princess Anne, who had been growing distant from Charles, stood by her nephews. She reportedly told Charles, "If you don't step down now, they'll tear it all down without you." The confrontation changed the course of royal history. For William and Harry, It wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about what came next. That was the moment the monarchy cracked, and Charles knew it, as senior royal advisor. The fallout began immediately. Security at Buckingham Palace was heightened. Camilla was kept away from official meetings, and in hushed tones across the palace halls, Emergency Palace Council votes Charles out. It happened behind palace walls, but once the decision was made, the whole world felt the impact. After weeks of whispers, leaked evidence, and growing public unrest, the Privy Council called an emergency session under the rarely used Regency Act. The question on the table: was King Charles still fit to rule? The mood inside the room was tense. According to insiders, not a single smile was seen that day. Everyone knew what was at stake: the monarchy's future and Diana's legacy. Camilla was barred from entering the council chamber due to her involvement in the investigation. Meanwhile, Prince William was quietly invited in. It wasn't ceremonial. This was about transition, control, and survival. One witness said Archbishop of Canterbury arrived holding a sealed document from the Church of England, endorsing the council's right to act on moral grounds. That was the final push some needed. The vote was swift: 9 votes for suspension, 3 against. With that, King Charles's royal authority was officially frozen. All ceremonial and sovereign functions were suspended indefinitely. And it wasn't just symbolic. Within hours, staff at Buckingham Palace were instructed to prepare for the removal of Charles's personal insignias. Crests, initials, and plaques bearing CR were to be quietly replaced. This isn't just a scandal. It's a constitutional emergency. Palace legal advisor. Back at Clarence House, Camilla reportedly refused to accept the news. Staff said she was shouting behind closed doors, accusing palace aides of betrayal. But no one was listening anymore. Power had shifted, and she wasn't part of the equation. Outside the palace, public protests were growing, louder and more emotional than ever before. People gathered with candles and signs reading, "Justice for Diana." Even politicians who once supported Charles began calling for transparency. Meanwhile, a security team was assembled for one final operation: the discreet removal of a king. It was no longer his palace, and he knew it. Senior council member, the monarchy had made its choice. But the next step would be the most surreal moment in modern royal history. Next, the king's final exit, and the moment Buckingham Palace turned its back on Charles. Charles escorted from the palace grounds. It was just before dawn on May 28, 2025. The streets outside Buckingham Palace were quiet, but inside, everything had changed. King Charles was no longer king, and now he had to leave. Without warning, a team of royal security agents arrived at his private residence. No guards in red, no trumpets, just silence and a plain black coat. Charles, once the most powerful man in Britain, was escorted out through the palace's rear gate. Sources say he didn't resist. He didn't speak. He just walked, slowly, head down, as aides carried out the last of his personal belongings. But Camilla? That was another story. Witnesses inside the palace claim she refused to pack, shouting at staff and demanding an audience with William. When she was told she'd been barred from contacting the new regent directly, she reportedly screamed, "You're all traitors! This isn't over!" But it was. Outside the gates, a growing crowd of protesters had gathered, many of them holding up photos of Princess Diana, chanting her name, "Diana forever! Justice at last!" By midday, Charles was relocated to Highgrove House, now stripped of its royal designation. His official status had been downgraded, his royal seal removed, his staff cut in half, and for the first time since he took the throne, he was alone. They didn't even give him a statement, just silence. Royal security staffer. That silence said everything. In the hours that followed, Buckingham Palace released a quiet update. The crown is in transition. A new chapter begins. No mention of Charles, no thank you, no farewell. Inside palace walls, insignias bearing CR were taken down. New designs were readied. William's initials, WR, William Rex, were quietly being embossed onto fresh royal documents. Camilla, still in shock, was later transported to a private estate in Norfolk. But her future was already unraveling. Investigators were digging deeper, and more damaging evidence was on its way. He walked in a king. He walked out forgotten. Former royal historian Charles's reign ended not with a ceremony, but with a whisper. Camilla faces. Her own reckoning. When Charles fell, Camilla thought she could still hold on. But what came next made it clear. Her time was up too. Within days of the king's removal, investigators began tracing old palace communications back to 1996. What they found were deleted messages between Camilla and two former aides. The messages had been wiped years ago, but forensic teams recovered them from archived backups. The content? Alarming. Camilla allegedly discussed Diana's press coverage, calling her a threat to stability and a shadow over our future. In one recovered note, she allegedly asked if certain meetings could be prevented or postponed for discretion. Investigators read it as a coded attempt to interfere with Diana's movements. Then came the title blow. Under pressure from the public and the church, a royal decree was issued by the Privy Council. Camilla's title as Queen Consort was officially revoked. Effective immediately, she was stripped of ceremonial duties and returned to her former title, Duchess of Cornwall. She is no longer recognized as a senior royal figure, palace spokesperson. And her silence didn't last long. Camilla attempted to arrange a televised statement, hoping to defend herself and sway public opinion. But Diana's estate filed a legal objection, citing defamation risks. The network pulled out hours before airing. Camilla was silenced. Then came the final painful break. Prince William reportedly banned her from attending any future events involving his children. No birthdays, no holidays, nothing. Inside palace circles, even her few remaining allies went quiet. Camilla was now being referred to, even by longtime staff, as the outsider, and the public, unforgiving. Camilla's approval rating crashed below 10% in a matter of days. Online, anti-Camilla petitions surged past 5 million signatures, calling for her permanent exile from all royal institutions. She never belonged, one protester said. She just played the part. Everything she built, everything she tried to claim, it's gone. Just like that. Royal commentator. As of now, Camilla resides in a private estate in rural Scotland, cut off from official channels. She receives no daily briefings. No staff reports. No press coverage unless it's critical. And the woman who once dreamed of being queen? She's now just a name on the edge of a monarchy that has moved on without her. Up next, the crown doesn't collapse. It transfers. William rises, and the future of the monarchy changes forever. The crown's quiet, transfer to Prince William. There was no coronation, no gold carriages, no balcony wave. But behind palace doors, history was rewritten in silence. With Charles suspended and Camilla stripped of her title, the monarchy faced a vacuum, and it didn't take long to fill. Under a special clause of the Regency Act, the Privy Council invoked accelerated succession on moral grounds. Prince William was formally offered the role of Prince Regent, a title that gave him full ruling authority without requiring his father's death or abdication. He accepted. In a closed session, the sealed letter from Queen Elizabeth II, written years earlier, was opened and read aloud. In it, the late Queen referred to William as the moral compass of the monarchy. When the time comes, he must lead. The letter carried enormous symbolic power. It gave not just legality, but emotional legitimacy to William's rise. The council voted unanimously in favor. Palace guards were instructed to change all insignias from CR to WR, William Rex. The changeover happened overnight. One morning it was Charles, the next it was William, but no one questioned it. Palace Insider. Beside him, Princess Kate stepped into the spotlight. No longer just the Princess of Wales, she took on expanded ceremonial duties, representing the crown at diplomatic functions, state briefings, and royal charities. Photos of Kate meeting with foreign ambassadors began circulating. Smiling, steady, composed. The message was clear. This was the monarchy's new heart. And while William didn't move into Buckingham Palace right away, his presence was felt everywhere. Royal communications, national addresses, even the official government website, all now referred to Prince William as the head of state. But one moment sealed the transition for the public. On June 12, 2025, in a private ceremony with senior clergy and military officials, William signed a single document. With duty and honor, I accept the crown's burden for the good of the people. It wasn't loud, it wasn't theatrical, but it was absolute. It was everything Charles wasn't: quiet, humble, and full of meaning. Government official present at the ceremony. As the crown passed silently from father to son, the monarchy was reborn. Not just cleaned up, but reimagined. Diana's legacy publicly vindicated. It was the moment millions had waited for. Diana's name finally cleared. Just weeks after William took on the role of Prince Regent, the palace released a simple but powerful statement. We recognize the pain, the truth, and the light Diana brought to this world. Her legacy will not be erased. And then came the action. The Crown officially announced a $15 million memorial fund in Diana's name, using redirected assets from Charles's former estate. The fund would go toward causes Diana championed: landmine removal, HIV awareness, domestic abuse support, and mental health outreach. But this wasn't just about money. It was about making history right. Diana's humanitarian records, which had been quietly buried in lesser royal archives, were now moved to the center of the royal collection. For the first time, her life's work was being treated not as a side note, but as royal history. She was the people's princess, and now she is the royal family's compass. Princess Kate, private statement. Then came the unveiling. On July 7, 2025, in Hyde Park, a brand new statue was revealed, Diana holding the hands of young William and Harry. The sculpture captured her mid-stride, smiling, warm, alive. Crowds wept. News networks paused coverage of everything else. But the moment that silenced the nation came from a new generation. Princess Charlotte, just 10 years old, stood before cameras and read a short, heartfelt tribute. In her calm voice, she said, my grandmother changed the future without ever seeing it. We love her, we remember her, and we thank her." The world stood still. Over 2 million people attended candlelight vigils across the UK that week. In London, Diana's old residence at Kensington Palace was lined with letters, photos, and handwritten signs reading, "Justice at last." Even Prince Harry, who returned briefly to attend the memorial unveiling, was seen embracing his brother in a rare public show of unity. The crowd applauded, not for royalty, but for family. She was never truly gone, and now she never will be. Hyde Park, attendee. In just weeks, Diana's story had transformed. No longer a tragedy to whisper about, but a legacy to teach, honor, and defend. Next, with the past honored, the monarchy makes a bold promise: never again. The monarchy rewrites its future. With the shadows of scandal finally lifting, Prince William knew the next step had to be bigger than restoration. It had to be transformation. And so, for the first time in royal history, the palace introduced a new code of transparency. From now on, all royal finances, travel, and advisory decisions would be publicly disclosed every quarter. No more secrets. No more hidden files. No more silence. We serve the people, and they deserve to see how we serve. Prince William televised address that wasn't just talk. The palace also opened the Royal Truth and Reconciliation Archive, a digital public record where victims of intelligence cover-ups, royal abuse, and historical silencing could share testimony, access documents, and request investigations. And on August 1st, 2025, a massive visual message appeared at the gates of Buckingham Palace. Projected across the iron entrance in bold light was a single phrase, "Never again." Crowds gathered and clapped. Some cried. Everyone knew what it meant. Inside the palace, William and Kate quietly modernized royal protocol. Obsolete traditions were trimmed, ceremonies shortened, staff reorganized to reflect a leaner, more responsible monarchy. The outdated aristocracy feel was gone, replaced by something human, clear, and proud. Public trust skyrocketed. Polls showed a stunning 72% approval rating for William and Kate's leadership, the highest in a generation. Younger voters who once ignored the royals entirely now viewed them as a necessary balance between history and hope. And what of Charles? He remains in seclusion at Balmoral, writing what sources say is a personal memoir, unofficial, unendorsed, and still unreleased. There is no timeline for its publication. As for Camilla, now living alone in rural Scotland, her name has quietly disappeared from public events, palace documents, and royal family websites. This isn't exile. It's consequence. Royal Court source. The monarchy is far from perfect, but for the first time in decades, it stands with its people, not above them. And the woman who was once its biggest threat? Diana is now its brightest light. Charles is out. Diana's legacy is restored. And the monarchy has been reborn under William and Kate. But the scars of betrayal still linger. Was justice truly served? Or is this just the beginning of more buried secrets? One thing's clear: the crown will never be the same again.